We live in a gaming world of speculation, rumors, hopes, dreams, crush, delays, all kinds of things. And when it comes to Gears of War as a franchise, it is right in the middle of it. Microsoft is in this desperate need of a win after a string of disappointing releases and horrible PR moves. The Xbox Series consoles have had a pretty rough first few years, and even though the console has sold well, the state of Xbox Game Studios hasn't been the best. Halo Infinite? I mean, let's be real with each other. It got off to a bad start, and the recent disaster that was Redfall kind of made things worse. All eyes are currently on Starfield to be the potential savior to Xbox Game Studios, but there's a ton of other projects in the works that we may be hearing about at the upcoming Xbox Showcase. Fable, Perfect Dark, Hellblade 2, Forza Motorsport, which is supposed to come out this year. But the big Xbox IP that I'm most interested in that could save the franchise is Gears of War. Now, it's been largely dormant for years now, and fans are desperate for any news they can get their hands on at this point. Gears 5 left the main series in a very, very awkward place. And while Gears Tactics was pretty cool as a spin-off, it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough meat on the bone to get back on track. So today, welcome to the channel, everybody. Chaos here. We are going to go over new leaks and new information that we have learned recently about Gears of War. Meaning, we're going to talk about Gears of War 6 and the heavily rumored Gears Remastered Collection, including all the recent leaks and updates as well as what you can expect to see at this upcoming Xbox Showcase. So if you're excited for Gears of War to make a comeback, drop a like on this video. Make sure you stick around until the end. We have a lot to cover. Now, before we talk about the Remastered Collection, because I know that's what most of you probably clicked on this video for, let's talk about the future of Gears of War. Because obviously, Microsoft isn't going to release a remastered game without having plans. Gears 5 dropped all the way back in 2019. It's believed that the developers, the Coalition, started production on the sequel quickly afterwards, but since then, we've gotten multiple conflicting reports on what state the game is in. The most recent official piece of development news came from an industry insider known as Jeff Grubb back in February of this year. He stated on Twitter that the game had entered full production mode within the last year. Now, according to multiple reports, the Coalition started development on Gears 6 relatively soon after Gears 5 launch, but obviously, things got pushed back after the world fell apart in 2020. In the studio, well, they had a couple side projects they were working on at the same time. But the last thing I heard was that the Coalition's schedule is clear and they're now 100% focused on Gears 6. Now, given how much early work was presumably done before the game entered full production with air quotes, I'm guessing the launch is roughly 2 years away. But if I had to guess, Microsoft will likely say something about Gears 6 at the summer showcase. So don't expect to actually get your hands on it until 2025. With how much Microsoft likes to promote their first-party games before they launch, I just don't think Gears 6 will be coming out in the next year or so without a formal announcement. I mean, I think that opens the door, though, for the Remastered Collection, which we're going to talk about a little later in this video. Just know, if you're waiting for Gears 6, you're going to be waiting a little while longer. Before we move on, guys, I have finally joined TikTok, but it's not what you think. It's not for video games, it's not for Marvel, it's not for pop culture. It is food reviews. That is right. We are reviewing all kinds of different foods over on TikTok. Link is at the top of the description if you guys want to join me over there in the journey. It's fun. I like to eat. I love food. And I like reviewing it. So you guys get over there and give it a follow if you're into that kind of thing. Now, there's a little more, or I've got one more piece of Gears 6 news that actually kind of flew under the radar a few weeks ago. It may actually be a bit concerning to the fans of this series. I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but I want to be transparent as well. Back in late April, Liam McIntyre, the voice actor for JD Phoenix, was asked by Dexerto about the next Gears of War project, and he gave kind of a concerning response. He simply said, "I haven't heard anything, and that's genuine. Like, it's not even one of those, I got an NDA, I can't tell you anything, I signed my life away. I'm like, where are we at? No." So, as of less than a month ago, at the time of this video's making, the voice actor of one of the main Gears characters made it very clear that he has not been in communication with anyone about Gears 6, which could be a huge issue if you're trying to get excited for the next entry in the franchise. Now, there is a possible explanation for this. In case you haven't played the Gears 5 campaign, I'm going to spoil the ending here, so skip ahead a minute or so if you don't want to be spoiled. But in the final act, the player actually makes the choice of whether they want to save JD or Del, and whoever they don't choose ends up dying. Now, the sequence is very emotional. It was talked about quite a bit in the Gears community after the game launched, but it also presented this huge issue for the Coalition. As of right now, we don't know which one of these endings is canon. We don't. And that's something we're going to need some clarification on soon, because obviously this plays a huge role into how the story moves forward for Gear 6. The main character of the series right now is Kate Diaz, who has a very close relationship with Del. So obviously, if Del dies, Kate is going to be heartbroken about it, and that would impact the story going forward, especially since Marcus Phoenix is kind of a mentor figure to her. But with all that being said, if the player chose to save Del and let JD die, that obviously is going to infuriate Marcus Phoenix, because he just had to watch his son die in the war that he tried to keep him out of. The point I'm getting at here is there are currently two wildly different timelines that Gears 5 presented at the end of its campaign, and it could branch out. We currently don't know which one is actually being continued or canon, because on one hand, we could continue on with Del surviving the end of Gears 5, meaning Kate and Del are still the dynamic duo, but now Marcus Phoenix hates them both for letting his son die. On the other hand, we could continue with JD surviving and Del dying, but then Kate and JD will both be broken up about losing their friend. But that means Marcus is still around to be the mentor figure to everybody. Personally, I think that's the best course of action here, but then that presents the problem of voice actors. Even though I think it would be a good idea to keep JD alive in Gear 6, you heard it earlier in this video that his voice actor has not been contacted by anybody in the Gear 6 production. And since we know the game is in development, that sounds like a problem unless he's just bald-faced lying, which that does happen. Now, given what we know about the production of the game, it sounds like the Coalition is moving forward with the ending where JD dies and Del lives. But I'm worried about that and what that's going to do to Marcus's character. I mean, you guys know Marcus Phoenix. He's not exactly the most low-tempered guy. Sure, he's mellowed out in the last couple games, and he's not the hothead he was in the original trilogy. But after JD dies, he's probably not going to want anything to do with the main cast of characters, meaning Gear 6 might have just lost their only remaining connection to the OG trilogy's cast of main characters. And if that's the case, I don't know if that's good. So I guess there's two ways you can interpret the statement from JD's voice actor. The first way is that Gear 6's development is moving very slowly, and the team still hasn't reached out to voice actors regarding their returning contracts, because ultimately, I think JD will be in Gear 6 even if he's dead in the campaign. Gears of War games usually have big rosters of playable characters in the multiplayer and the horde modes, so even if JD is dead, he's almost certainly going to show up in the game somewhere else, which would mean his voice actor would at the very least have to come back and record some dialogue. However, the other way you can interpret his statement is that Gear 6 is truly carrying on without JD, and Gear 6 development is chugging right along with his character gone. Granted, I think the Coalition would have reached out if that was the case and told the actor he wouldn't be returning in the new game, so that way he's not just sitting around by the phone waiting for his call, but maybe not. It's also totally possible the Coalition is just going to recycle some of JD's dialogue from Gears 5 to use in the multiplayer and horde modes for Gear 6, so that way they don't have to bring him in at all, which is not unheard of a situation either. They don't have to pay him either, which sucks, but yeah. Personally, I think Gear 6 is going to carry on with JD dead in the campaign, because at this point, I think the actor would have heard something about coming back to record new dialogue, if JD was going to be alive at least. So take it with how you want to. I'm 99% sure that the canon ending of Gears 5 is the one where JD dies, and that's where the next game is going to pick up if you ask me. Now, on the topic of endings, I suppose it's entirely possible that Gear 6 is going to have two entirely distinct campaigns, with one following the ending where Del dies, and the other one following the ending where JD dies. That way the players will feel the bluntness of their actions from Gears 5's campaign and their decisions, because I think many of you will agree, it was weird if you played the Gears 5 campaign and you killed JD, but then you booted it up in Gear 6 and he's alive? Having two different campaigns would also explain why development on Gear 6 is taking so long. I think that entire theory could be destroyed by the fact that JD's voice actor hasn't been called, but yeah, unless the Coalition is planning on hiring a new voice actor for JD, none of it makes sense. And I don't think the decision would be made without telling the actor. I really don't. The Coalition wouldn't recast JD without telling the original actor, because then he would once again be in a situation where he's sitting around by the phone and never getting a call, and it would look really unprofessional. Now, earlier this year, there was a job listing for the Coalition. They confirmed the existence of an unannounced Gears of War game, and they were on the market for some high-ranking members of the development team. Initially, it was suggested that this was simply Gears 6, but other people seem to think it's the fabled Gears Remastered. That's what we're here to talk about now. Personally, I don't agree with it, because some of the positions that were open were gameplay designers, and that's just not a position that the studio would need for a remaster of already completed games. It's also very likely that the Gears Remastered collection wouldn't be handled by the Coalition since they're working on Gear 6, and it's kind of become this industry standard for gaming for remasters and remakes to not be handled by the companies that control the IP. That way, the Coalition can just chug right along on Gears 6 while consulting with a different studio who's working on porting and remastering the older Gears games to PC and Xboxes. As for who is working on it, I have no idea. But assuming that the game is real, and I truly think it is, I don't think the Coalition would be the team working on it. So ultimately, I think these job listings were actually for Gears 6, because even through the listing, it said the new hire would be working on an unannounced Gears game. You have to remember, we have not had a formal announcement for Gears 6. We all know there's a new Gears game in production, and we all know there's going to be a 6 mainline Gears of War game, but as of the recording of this video, Microsoft has not officially confirmed the game's title, release date, or anything like that. So technically, the game is unannounced and doesn't exist yet. I'm really hoping that changes of the upcoming Xbox showcase happen and we get some clarity. We'll have to wait and see. But you know what Gears of War project that I think is definitely going to be announced at the Xbox showcase? Gears Remastered. Yes, that's probably why you're here. For over a year now, there have been rumors floating around the internet that Microsoft is working on this giant remaster of Gears of War, the trilogy, structured almost identically to the Master Chief Collection, where all 3 original Gears of War games would have their own campaigns, their own multiplayers, their own horde modes, remastered and bundled into one game for old school players and new fans alike. Back in January, a couple of industry insiders claimed once again the game was in production, but they didn't know when it would be revealed, and I'm starting to think this summer showcase is showtime. Microsoft needs some serious hype around the Xbox brand, and since Gears of War has been one of their biggest IPs for almost 2 decades, that's insane to say, it seems like a golden ticket. The Gears Remastered Collection has reportedly been in development for a while now, and the going theory is that Microsoft is going to use it as a way to hype up Gears 6 once that game is nearing completion. However, with how desperate Microsoft may be for a win, I think they may just say screw it and announce the Remastered Collection this summer and possibly even launch it by the end of the year, despite the fact that Gears 6 is likely 2 years away. Up until this point, we thought Gears Remaster was going to launch about 12 to 18 months before Gears 6, so that way the Gears community could go out, buy a new Xbox console, get reinvested in the franchise. But with how eager Microsoft is to get people hyped about the Xbox right now, I think it may be in their best interest to just drop the Gears Remastered at the showcase and launch it in November or December, holiday season 2023. The last time Microsoft announced a Gears Remaster, it was the remake of Gears 1 that was announced alongside the announcement trailer for Gears 4. I think the Gears Remaster Collection will be announced in a similar fashion this time, I do. It will be alongside Gears 6, however, with Gears 6 still pretty far out, Microsoft getting desperate, I think we're going to see Gears Remastered at the showcase. I do, and maybe a Gears 6 teaser alongside it. So long story short, I'm expecting Gears Remastered to be at the showcase 99.9%. And possibly even with a late 2023 release date, or maybe early spring or Q1 of 2024. But I'm only about 20 to 30% sure that Gears 6 will be there. I think that game is just a little too far down the pipeline for Microsoft to hype it up yet. With how annoyed people are right now with the Xbox Game Studios constantly announcing things and then pushing them back for years, they probably don't want to add more fuel to that fire. So yeah, I would say expect tentatively a Gears Remastered announcement at the summer Xbox Showcase, and maybe cross your fingers for a Gears 6 teaser trailer. But the Remastered Collection is far more likely to make an appearance if you ask me. And obviously, I don't have any insider knowledge. This is all just pure speculation, but I've been in the scene for a while now, and going off what I know about Microsoft and Xbox and the industry insiders that are talking about it, I think, yeah, I'm sticking with my prediction. So let me know what you guys think. Are you more excited for Gears 6 to continue the main storyline, or are you more excited for a completely remastered Gears trilogy? Think Master Chief Collection, but fast forward 2 or 3 years when it was all fixed and it was all perfect. Don't think about it when it launched because it was one of the biggest disasters in Xbox and Microsoft's history. Let me know what you guys think. Give me your thoughts on it, and I'll see you guys soon.